Let's talk a little bit about Mother Tongue by Amy Tan. So you should have the handout there that has the text of it. And I also uploaded a YouTube video of someone reading it aloud. The beginning is a little silly, but I really like kind of his animation and his connection to the text. So I suggest listening to the text and reading along with it first and then coming back to this video. So after you have listened and you've read the text, the second thing we're going to do is be annotating our work. We did this a little bit with the show and tell, kind of going back through and marking things that we found were important. And as we read kind of these shorter texts, we're going to want to start studying them like writers. So when our text is called Readings for Writers, because when you read something as a writer, you're looking at so much more than just the content and information. It's kind of like if you've ever hung out with someone who is like a carpenter or a builder or even a baker or a cook, and then you go past a house and they'll like tell you all the things in the house that like you would have never noticed even if you lived in that house, but they know because they are into construction and they understand how something is built and whether things are good and whether things are bad and what that does to the person who lives there. So that's how we are as writers. When we read, we want to look at how something is structured, how something is built. So when I look at Amy Tan's Mother Tongue, the first thing I notice is just the paragraphing. Like physically, when I look at mine, the paragraphs are really big. Some of them are really small. Some of them look like, an English teacher might mark it up because it's too long. Some of them they mark up because it's too short. And this is the thing. Now that you are in 121 and we're really working on college academic writing, at this point, things should not be so structured as they used to be. So we don't want a 5-paragraph essay. That's really not what strong writing is at this point. At this point, writers don't go, what are the rules? Writers go, what am I trying to convey and how do I do that best? So the first little bit I think is really interesting because she says, I'm not a scholar. And so I circled that for myself and wrote kind of a question mark because isn't she though? Like she's a famous author. I'm reading her in an academic course. What's going on there? So it's kind of the question. But she says, I am a writer. And that makes me think, well, what's the difference between being a writer and a scholar, right? She's already making these kind of different definitions. And then she starts out the next sentence that says, and by that definition, I am someone who's always loved language, which I connect with. So I put like a little star because I also love language as an English teacher. But the other thing I noticed is she starts her sentence with and. And if you look throughout her other writing, and as she goes on, she does this all the time. She likes to have these short sentences that start with and or but or so, which we've always been told like don't do. But it really makes sense in her writing and it works really well. So as we are writing and thinking about our own writing, I want you to start thinking about rules that you have been taught and maybe rules that you are starting to break. I kind of connect it to like professional athletes. I am clearly not a professional athlete and I'm pretty uncoordinated actually. And so my husband always likes to try to teach me how to do things, throw a ball, this or that. And so he'll break it down and I do it and it's poorly and I don't really care at this point. But then I go and I watch things, like I watch a Cubs game, watch a Bears game, and I see, especially like Bears, because Trubinsky is our quarterback right now, he's always like throwing off his back foot, and it's probably because he's not a great quarterback. But sometimes he still makes the catch or makes the throw. And so why does he get away with that when I can't? Well, because I'm a novice, right? And when you're a novice, you totally have to follow all those rules in order to make the catch, the throw, all of those things. So that's why we teach you these things about structure and paragraphing, all of that. But at this point, you are college athletes. At this point, you are professionals almost, right? You can make those choices on what's going to work and what's going to not. So notice how Amy Tan does these things and kind of breaks the rules and how it really works in her writing. A couple other things I noticed is in that third paragraph, she uses some dialogue, right? She says, my mother's in the room, and I said something like, the intersection of memory upon imagination. That's awesome because if she would have just said, I used a lot of big words, that's telling. Showing is giving us the words. She also shows her mom, and she says, my mother's expressive command of English belies how she actually understands. She reads the Forbes report. She listens to Wall Street. She converses daily with her stockbroker. She reads all of Shirley MacLaine's books with ease. All things I can't begin to understand. So she never says it there in that paragraph, but by that showing and using those strong verbs, reads, listens, converses, she is showing us that her mother is intelligent, that her mother completely grasps English and gets it. So she doesn't have to say that because she's showing it. As we're kind of developing our own characters and thinking about how we're going to develop people in our writing, this is one way to do it instead of telling us to kind of show by those things that those people do. She does a lot more things in here, and go ahead and look at kind of what I've marked up and go through and reread it yourself and see what else you notice. Try to read it like a writer. And this is something we'll be practicing a lot as we go through the course.